The lobby is built to shine and to hurry. Glass climbs 40 feet, steel lines the seams. Escalators hum, badges flash green at the turnstiles, and the floor keeps time with a chorus of heels. The air is cool enough to keep people moving. Daniel Reyes stands still in the center's quieter lane, a worn jacket zipped to the collar, a messenger bag slung close. In his right hand he holds a dented stainless lunchbox with a yellow star sticker that won't peel, the hinge polished by years of opening. A transit pass clips to his pocket, scuffed at the edges, yesterday's train pressed into its plastic. The building moves around him the way a river moves around a piling. He watches, patient, measuring the room that is measuring him. He approaches the desk when the line thins. "Good morning," he says. "I need to see the CEO." The receptionist smiles with professional brightness, fingers already waking a screen. "Name? Daniel Reyes. Company? Independent." She searches, scrolls, searches again. "I'm not seeing an appointment, Mr. Reyes. Walk-ins go through HR." He nods once. "Please note that I have a packet for her attention," he says. "It concerns vendor losses and timing windows. I emailed 2 weeks ago." His tone is even, unpressing, the words placed where they belong. The desk's light slants across his lunchbox. The star catches and throws it back. Behind him, people sidestep without looking, recalculating paths around the man who isn't moving their way. Optics do what optics do: worn jacket, lunchbox, no badge, not from here. A pair of analysts glance and erase it. A courier doesn't bother. Security drifts closer at a practice distance, posture easy, hands open. Above, an elevator car rises. Its arrival bell is small, exact. It grows louder by degrees. Leah straightens without standing, the smile she keeps for protocol already set. "Good morning, Mr. Reyes," she says, eyes on the screen. "For executive meetings we need advance registration and a host confirmation." "Did you receive a QR code?" Daniel shakes his head. "I emailed 2 weeks ago," he says. "Urgent pattern in vendor losses tied to timing windows. I brought a packet for the person who can act." Her fingers move through tabs and date filters. Nothing with his name surfaces. "I'm not seeing correspondence," she says. "The general inbox receives a high volume. Walk-ins are routed through HR for safety and screening." "Understood," he answers, voice even. "Please make sure the right eyes see this." He lifts a sealed envelope labeled Chief Executive Officer, Private. Security Officer Brooks arrives at a courteous distance, posture relaxed, hands open. "Building policy says guests without appointments meet HR first," he says. Daniel meets the policy without argument. "That's fine," he says. "I'm here to be useful, not loud." He rests the dented lunchbox on the counter a moment, the yellow star catching light, then returns it to his hand as if remembering why he carries it. Leah hesitates, then takes the envelope and sets it in the tray she uses when something must move without noise. She logs the handoff, tags the time, and adds a note. Brooks steps aside so he doesn't crowd the space. His thumb rests near the radio. "If you'll wait there, HR will come down," Leah says. "Do you have a number on file?" Daniel recites it clearly, each digit distinct. "I leave for school pickup at 3:30, he adds, not as pressure, as a fact the day must respect. Leah nods and pages. "Nadia Patel to lobby, please." The call light glows. An elevator chime answers softly from above. Air tightens by a degree. At the far doors a small procession appears. Executive badges, tablets, the compact focus of a team carrying a morning like a blade. Brooks shifts half a pace to clear their path. Daniel stands left of the lane. The building keeps its hum. Elena Park steps out of the elevator scrolling a brief, thumbs finding headings before her heels find rhythm. The lobby narrows around her like a funnel. Conversations slip into lower registers, paths open, time speeds. Her eyes lift long enough to map the space. Reception. Security. A man in a worn jacket with a stainless lunchbox marked by a yellow star. Out of place, not a problem, a pause. She stops at the desk without breaking her pace. "Appointment?" she asks, voice even, eyes returning to the screen. Leah shakes her head. "None on file." Walk in. Waiting for you. Elena's attention flickers to the man like a glance at whether you have dressed for. Who are you here to see? He asks. You, he says. I emailed about vendor losses. I brought a packet. This isn't a place to wait, she says, not unkind, only precise. HR will assist you upstairs and make sure materials are routed correctly. Security Officer Brooks shifts a half step to escort without pressure. The man nods once. Understood. He sets the lunchbox on the counter long enough to free a sealed envelope and places it in Leah's hand. Please make sure the person who can act reads it. Elena hears the sentence and files it as a note, not a directive. Leah logs the handoff, timestamps the tray. The star on the lunchbox catches light and throws it back across marble. Brooks gestures toward the side bank. The man gathers the envelope's absence into his pocket and the lunchbox back into his hand. Handled, Elena thinks. She turns toward the executive corridor, the phone's next page ready, the board prep reasserting its claim on the morning. Behind her, the lobby resumes its weather, the river of badges closing over the space where he stood. Nadia meets him at the side bank and keeps her pace easy, the way you walk with someone who has been made to wait. The HR suite is quieter than the lobby, carpeted air and soft chairs that try not to remind anyone of forms. She offers water, a seat near the window. He thanks her and sits, the dented stainless lunchbox balanced on his knee like a small flag, the yellow star catching a line of light. If you need anything, I'm Nadia, she says. We'll make sure your materials are routed. May I ask the nature of your visit? Daniel nods. I fix problems people can't see until they cost money. Vendor losses tied to timing windows. I sent a note 2 weeks ago. I'm here to place the packet where it belongs. She notes his cadence, unhurried, exact, not selling. The lunchbox stays steady on his knee, a weight that explains the line he adds without emphasis. I leave at 3:30 for school pickup, he says. If we don't get to it today, we can continue tomorrow. He does not look at the clock. The boundary is not a threat, only the frame around the day. Nadia types his name into the HR system out of habit, then into her private archive out of curiosity. Reyes returns ordinary HR tickets. Daniel returns a flicker, an old reimbursement tag labeled Independent Integrity Review. Counsel noted, CO channel only. The initials on the attached memo are careful and small. D.R. She doesn't jump to conclusions. She files the detail where useful things wait. Tell me what you're seeing, she says. He answers like a diagram. Small mislabels where vendor class maps refresh late. Retroactive edits near midnight. Shipments insured low just before routes pass through higher-risk windows. None of it big enough to ring alone. Together they ring. He doesn't push the envelope at her. He waits for her to ask. It keeps the room honest. Upstairs, a tone cuts the executive floor. A vendor lane freezes on audit, dashboards flash amber. Finance pings operations with a calming story that feels thin. Nadia's phone vibrates. A notice rolls across the security feed. Pressure tilts. Somewhere above, an elevator chooses a floor and starts down slowly. A tone cuts through the pre-brief like a thread pulled tight. On the wall, the operations dashboard throws an amber band across a vendor lane, audit hold blinking at 30-second intervals. People glance, then return to posture. Gavin Holt, the CFO, doesn't. He smiles at the color as if it were weather. Small operational hiccup, he says, already drafting reassurance. We close the signing, then triage. Schedule is the win. The operations lead, Mara Singh, doesn't sit with that. Her tablet holds a short list nobody asked for. 4 small losses in 6 weeks, each routed through the same approver ID, each reversed just inside tolerance. She says it without heat. The pattern isn't big, but it's regular. The freeze today hits the same corridor. She taps the screen once. We should read this now, before signatures turn it into a headline. Gavin's pen clicks. We have covenants to respect and guests in the building, he says. The market reads velocity. Legal can paper this after lunch. He keeps his voice on the frequency that calms rooms that want to notice things. The dashboard blinks again. Amber holds. Elena watches the exchange in that quiet place she trusts more than her calendar. The words, after signing, land wrong. She thinks of cost curves and vendor anger, of freezes that last longer than updates, of how neat numbers hide the price of delay. A memory arrives with the tact of a hand on a shoulder, her father's rule for days like this. There's a red file, he told her once, back when succession was theory. If you feel a shape you can't name, open it. She has never needed it. She has called process clarity and made it true with speed. Now the speed feels like a gate swung too wide. She closes the brief, stands, and speaks without voltage. 10 minutes, she says. Continue prep. Mara, send me the IDs. In her office the light is cooler. She keys a code, turns a small brass lock, and wakes a drive that lives behind 2 passwords and 1 old habit. COIs only sits there red as the memory that brought her. She clicks Osprey. The folder opens. She exhales once, then starts reading what she once ignored. The folder is small and red and older than her tenure. Osprey, the label says, typed in a font her father preferred when he still believed paper could outrun panic. COIs only. Elena clicks and finds a directory that looks like a map, memos, exhibits, names. The first document opens on a sentence that meets the day without needing an introduction. Pattern of incremental vendor loss correlated to timing windows and control edits. She reads. The memo diagrams 3 seams with the neatness of someone who likes systems enough to doubt them. Seam 1, input validation drift in the vendor class map, mislabels past tolerance and reverse quietly, but the total climbs. Seam 2, retroactive maintenance log edits timestamp near midnight, tied to a tight cluster of credentials. Seam 3, underinsured cold chain shipments routed through higher risk windows, then cleared with fast claims. The conclusion speaks in numbers, not adjectives. 7-figure exposure inside 2 quarters, freeze risk 60 to 90 days, reputational torque high. At the end of the page a line sits where signatures wait. Recommended external, Daniel Reyes, Independent Systems Integrity. Prior assistance, 2 years ago, under counsel. She blinks at the name not because it is new, but because it was just in her lobby with a lunchbox and a yellow star and no appointment. She scrolls. There is an attached brief, sealed then, authored by D. Reyes, delivered through the founder's channel during a crisis she inherited and solved without ever seeing the face behind it. The knots loosen with a single motion. The walk-in she routed to HR wrote the map she just used. She stops long enough to account for the cost of calling process judgment. Then she moves. HR, she says into the desk phone, voice even. Bring Mr. Reyes to conference A. Route him through legal for a same-day NDA and advisor pass. She does not apologize over the line, she changes the sequence. She opens a new window and flags ID. Snapshot CFO inbox and device logs for the last 14 days, she says. Preserve without notice. Route to compliance outside normal channels. Copy legal. She adds a second line that answers the day without drama. Pull maintenance log edit trails from midnight windows over the past quarter. Bind to credential clusters. In the memo's margin a note in her father's hand reads, open this before you trust your eyes. She closes the file and trusts the sentence. Outside, the amber band keeps pulsing. Inside, she resets the order of who gets heard first before the room convenes. Nadia finds him where she left him, chair by the window, the dented lunchbox steady on his knee, the yellow star catching a thread of light. He has not fidgeted the room into impatience, he has let it be what it is. She crosses the carpet with purpose that does not jolt. Mr. Reyes, she says. The CEO would like to see you now. We'll stop by legal for a brief agreement on the way. He rises without scraping the chair, messenger bag settling against his shoulder as if it has always known that place. Thank you, he says. The boundary remains unspoken because it does not need to be, the day knows it already. Legal sits 2 turns down the corridor, a room that prefers glass to mystery. A paralegal opens a short form, prints his name, and slides a pen across. Non-disclosure. Day rate engagement. Advisor access for system review. He reads, signs, dates. The pen clicks once. A visitor badge finds his lapel. An advisor pass rests in his palm, weightless as a token that unlocks doors without making noise. They step back into a hallway as the elevator opens on Gavin Holt's smile that wants to be ownership. "I'll handle him," Gavin says, angling his shoulder as if to turn the procession toward a side room. Nadia's posture does not change. "Elena asked for Conference A," she says. "We're en route." Gavin's reply shapes itself into guidance and dies when Elena's voice reaches them from the far end. "Conference A. Now." No detours. Her tone is not louder than the air, it is simply the setting the air obeys. Gavin nods, the motion tight, and falls in beside them as if he had planned to escort. Conference A resets in the span of a coffee. Binders multiply, tabbed and square. A projector hums awake on the wall. Operations flags logs for quick pull. Legal sets a yellow pad. Nadia holds the door. Daniel sets the lunchbox on the sideboard, opens his notebook to a clean page. The room takes its news center without argument or noise. Conference A carries its own climate, cooler air, blinds angled to turn the city into soft geometry, a table that can seat a dozen without encouraging speeches. Elena takes the chair at the side instead of the head, a choice that lowers posture and raises pace. Her voice is crisp, non-theatrical. "We will look at the numbers," she says. "We will listen in the order evidence requires." Daniel chooses a seat at mid-table, either at the head nor at the wall. He sets his messenger bag by his feet, the dented lunchbox on the sideboard within reach of a clock the room cannot see. His notebook opens to a clean page, the pen rests parallel to the spine. He does not inventory credentials. He says what he needs. Vendor dispute logs for the last 90 days. Maintenance edit trails with timestamps. Insurance adjustments on cold chain lanes with claim windows shorter than 30 days. He pauses. Route list for the lanes that froze today and in the prior 6 weeks. Operations moves first, pulling queries like thread. Legal flags retention limits, and then steps aside. IT joins with a quiet chime, camera off, voice exact. Elena keeps the tempo with fewer words than usual, a metronome that permits no drift. Gavin hovers near column headers as if proximity can change meaning. Daniel sketches boxes on the page without labels. Mapping flows the way you map water through a system you have never seen but already know. He marks where codes should reconcile, where humans touch the stream, where edits can occur without alarms. He writes 2 lines and lets a third wait, as if leaving room for the number that will close a loop. "I don't need credit," he says into the traffic of screens and paper. "I need the numbers to tell the same story twice." The sentence lands without emphasis and changes the room more than emphasis would have. People stop saying probably. The printer wakes, paper lands. Vendor disputes appear as rows, small reversals and side tolerance. Maintenance logs stack, regular as a heartbeat, with edits gravitating toward midnight. Insurance adjustments arrive in a neat list, 3 columns where 2 would have been easier to explain. Daniel draws a narrow arrow from disputes to adjustments, then a longer one from adjustments to maintenance. He does not lecture the link, he lets the geometry imply it. He closes his pen, looks up once, and waits for the missing list. IT drops the route histories. He reaches for them, already marking the first seam. Then he circles a second pressure point, where claims meet routes. A third forms at midnight edits. The projector hums. The room leans in, listening now. Daniel arranges the printouts so margins align, a single road from source to consequence. He taps the first sheet with a finger that doesn't hurry. The vendor class map refresh ran after a code push, not before. The validation table still trusts last quarter's entries. Small mislabels slide through as routine, pass tolerance, and reverse quietly a week later. On a ledger they look harmless. On a trend they grow teeth. He turns to the column of figures. Here the drift is measured, not guessed. Low-value misclassifications accumulating into 7 figures by mid-quarter. Left untouched, the slope puts an $18 million risk across 2 quarters, and that presumes the vendors stay patient. Scene 2 sits where clocks are least watched. Maintenance log edits cluster near midnight, 12:40 to 1:15, when skeleton crews are grateful for silence. He lays the audit trail next to the edits. The same credential cluster appears like footprints nobody even tried to cover. 2 changes precede each small reversal by less than 24 hours. Scene 3 ties the money to the road. Cold chain shipments, underinsured at departure, are routed through higher risk windows where alerts are likelier to flicker than claimed quickly. The policy limits look thrifty until Elaine freezes, then the quarter inhales and cannot exhale. He speaks without decoration. Miss the validation refresh and the ledger will underreport risk until it bites. Let retroactive edits stand in the map bends, stack those with underinsurance, and you purchase a freeze. 60 to 90 days, depending on how quickly counsel can separate coincidence from choreography. He places a sealed envelope on the table as if it were a small, precise weight. 2 weeks old, addressed to the CEO through the general line, it carries metadata most people never read, opened at 1413 from the CFO's account, routed to suppression at 1602. He does not look at Gavin when he says it. He does not need to. Nadia steps in with a printed log that makes the envelope unnecessary and still useful. Attachment opened, her page reads, and under it, routing suppressed. Timestamps stack like coordinates. The ink does the talking rooms pretend not to hear. The room recalibrates without swiveling chairs. Operations draws a straighter breath. Legal begins a list that starts with preserve and ends with external. IT's cursor stops blinking and starts pulling device logs. Elena keeps still the way cliffs do, not unfeeling, only made for weight. She reads the chain from mislabeled to midnight to insurance, and finds the same hand pressing at each hinge. Gavin's composure phrase where his collar meets his neck, the smile he keeps for markets does not arrive. His pen clicks once, and does not click again. Legal asks for 5 minutes off the record and gets a nod without delay. Elena closes the envelope with a fingertip, as if returning a tool to its drawer, and looks at Daniel as though the room finally has the person it was missing. "Thank you," she says, not for flattery but for sequence. He nods, and the projector hums like a clock remembering its job. Silence steadies long enough for authority to choose its line. "Leave the room," Elena says. "It is not loud. It does not need to be." Gavin blinks once and complies because the floor has shifted without visible motion. The latch closes with the ordinary sound of a consequence. Air returns to working temperature. "We move now," Elena says. "External audit, independent of finance. Counsel engaged today. Compliance, preserve everything, inboxes, device logs, edit trails, claims files. IT, snapshot Gavin Holt's accounts for the last 14 days and revoke elevated permissions. Route all findings to legal and me. No single-point gatekeeping. Operations, rebuild the validation table and run a clean refresh before close. Institute dual approval on all maintenance edits, and require change tickets with human names, not just credentials. Insurance, freeze manual adjustments pending review. Vendor relations, draft language for a 30 to 90-day cure that prevents full-lane freezes except on the D. And for contracts going forward, add a control clause certification, 2 sign-offs and, where we work across languages, a bilingual check so wording cannot drift. Pens move because the room believes her. Legal rights hold notices. IT begins the harvest. Operations starts a run book on the whiteboard, boxes and arrows that already look sturdier than this morning's plan. Nadia is standing by the door with a printer tray and a stillness that reads as readiness. The projector continues to hum, a clock rediscovering its job. Elena keeps still until the orders stop making noise in her head. Then she names the cost. "I filtered site through process and called it governance," she says. "I dismissed a human signal as noise because it arrived without a badge. I protected schedule over judgment. That will not happen again." She does not watch faces for comfort. The statement is not a mirror, it is a floor. A room that had been performing certainty begins to do work. Pages stack under the right names. Access lists shorten. The chain of custody acquires teeth. Someone breathes and sounds surprised by oxygen. Daniel has not spoken since the evidence landed. He closes his notebook, aligns the pen with the spine, and lifts the dented lunchbox from the sideboard. He looks at the clock he carries, not the one on the wall. He did not come for triumph. He came to return a beam to its place. He turns toward the doorway. "Mr. Reyes," Elena says. He stops in the threshold, not turning yet, granting her the second without offering it. She rises from her chair, not to command the room but to correct sequence. "Stay, Mr. Reyes," she says, then, softer, "Thank you. I have something to say, and I would say it to you now." She steps into the corridor and lets the door settle behind her. The hum of the building returns, cooler here, truer. "I treated the filter as the source," Elena says. "I moved you because you didn't match my plan. That was my error, not yours. Thank you for stopping us before the fluoresce." Daniel stands easy, notebook closed, the strap of his bag a straight line across his shoulder. "I only asked the language to match the promise," he says. "If the right person reads the page can work." She nods once, choosing speed that serves sight. "I want you engaged today on a day rate under NDA," she says. "Help legal reset the validation table path, restore the change controls, and map the edit clusters to names. If the audit confirms the pattern, I'll propose a short retainer to harden our templates and train teams. Official channels. Clean terms. That's workable," Daniel says. "I'll deliver fixes to council and operations, then get out of the way. I'm not the story." "You won't have to be," she says. "Results will be." He adds the line that turns agreement into shape. "I'm home by 3:30 for pickup," he says. "If we run past that, we continue tomorrow." "Agreed," Elena says immediately. She writes it into the one-page engagement with her pen, letters even, ink dark. Day rate, NDA, boundary at 3:30, bilingual certification on control clauses going forward, dual approval on maintenance edits. She signs, dates, and passes the sheet. He signs, returns the pen with a small nod. "Thank you," she says again, not as a ribbon but as a floor. He inclines his head and turns back toward the room. The lunchbox swings lightly in his hand. The yellow star catches the light. Outside the school, Sophie comes down the steps in a rush that softens when she spots him. Daniel raises the dented stainless lunchbox. The yellow star winks in the late light. She hooks her hand into his and walks until her breathing matches his. "Did the quiet work matter?" she asks without ceremony. "It did," he says. "People listened." She thinks about that, serious in the way small people are when truth has a simple shape. "Good," she says. "Quiet is easier to hear." They cross at the corner and turn toward the bus stop they never take. "Agreements are promises made visible," he says, keeping the words small. "When people forget the people, the ones who carry the promise, little leaks sink big ships." "So you fixed the leak?" "We showed it to the people who could," he says. "That's most of fixing." A wind lifts the corner of his notebook. The blue line of his signature flashes and settles. Sophie taps the yellow star with one finger like a bell. "Next time, can you say a quiet sentence faster?" "Only when the room is ready to hear it," he says. "Then you said it at the right time," she decides, and he nods because the day has already agreed. Back at Aurora, the building hums in a different key. Maintenance edits require 2 names. Control clauses are certified in both languages. Device logs and inboxes are preserved before anyone performs confidence. A small card sits on Elena's desk in her father's hand. "Open the red files sooner." She leaves it there where it can see the door. They pass a storefront that smells like oranges. Sophie tells him a story about a paper sun she made at school. He listens. Their steps match. The lunchbox rides quietly home.